All right, we are live. So let me go ahead and just take a minute to tweet this out here. Just shouldn't take more than a minute here before we get started. Got something interesting conversation planned. Hopefully we'll get some people coming in and get some good comments and discussion going. And we'll have some fun with this. So let me just take a quick minute here. Share this on Twitter. Hopefully this ain't showing anything. It shouldn't. All right, so that is on there now. So we are tweeting. We are live. All right, welcome back to WMMA Now with your host Chuck Stevenson. Second live stream in a week, pretty rare occurrence for this channel. But I wanted to talk about UFC atomweight. So recently, Dana White was in an interview with the Schmo, and atomweight division got brought up. So I'm going to go ahead and take a second, and I will play the timestamp in the interview there. Hopefully I won't break any copyright laws with this, but I'll go ahead and play that for you.
What's more likely to happen first? We get some rankings for the UFC's female featherweight division, or we create a 105-pound female division?
What was the first question?
What's more likely to happen first? Getting rankings for the female UFC featherweight division, or starting up a 105-pound weight division for the females?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Off the top of my head right now, I would love to do a 105-pound division. Kicked it around and talked about it and thought about it. So we'll see. We'll see.
All right, the Schmo's done drilling you. This is the great way to close out 20.
Okay, so, first of all, I like the way the Schmo asked the question. He's very good at getting good answers. He basically asked a loaded question. What is more likely, this one or this one? He basically forced Dana to, give one or another answer. Hola, the brother man. So I like the way the Schmo asked the question and got a pretty good answer for. I like the way, and Dana knew that it was a loaded question too, with that little going on, and so he's, I like the way his answer. He said, I would love to do it, which to me is probably the most assertive he's been about this. Which he was asked about it recently and wasn't, didn't give as committed of an answer. Not that this is as a very committed answer, but it's certainly a more committed answer than he's given recently or ever before this. I mean, saying he'd love to do it. That's very good. He says it's on his mind and it's being considered. So this is the best answer we've gotten revolving this in quite a long time. And, I've talked about, the UFC and why they should bring in an atomweight division going on, 3 years now? I think going on 4 years now. So, yeah, going in 2021. Did my first edition of why the UFC should add the atomweight division in 2018. I've done an edition every year since then. And, I've talked about the pros, and I'll go ahead and go over them again. Reasons to open the division. First off, speed. The atomweights are fast. I mean, they are just so fast. And then another one is deceptive power. People think, oh, there's no way atomweights are going to have any knockout power. And that's just wrong. I mean, there's, you look at the old clip of Jin Yu Fry knocking out that girl in one of her earlier fights, just straight up killed the girl. Then you have Sahi Ham knocking out Jin Yu Fry herself. Or, I mean, there's plenty of atomweight knockouts and finishes. So they definitely have deceptive power. Another one is good finishing rate. I created a list earlier this year on 10 atomweights the UFC should sign. And over 50%, or no, at least half of that list had a 50% or greater finishing rate. So, yeah, there's some good finishers in that division. Then I listed the X factor, you know, looks, aesthetics, personality. Atom weights, you know, there's a lot of atom weights that fill those up. So they definitely hit a lot of those X factors that the UFC likes to talk about. And then I put that they were relatively easy to acquire. And that's mostly because a lot of the atom weights are in a smaller promotions. They're not making a ton of money. So in that aspect, they're going to be a little easier to acquire. But that's them being spread out is also on my list of cons as well. Inexpensive. Like I said, they're not going to be. It's not going to be expensive to start this division. They could probably acquire, 20 atom weights for the price of one fight for a champion. Like say, what does Amanda Nunes makes like what, $250K per fight, $300K per fight? You could get 20 atom weights and have their first fights for that much. Most of them anyway. I mean, you might have to pay some of them a little bit more, but you're definitely going to get them for, fairly cheap. Competitive. It's a brand new division. There's going to be a lot of good competition going on. And I mean, there are some fighters in the division that are, ahead above the rest. But for the most part, it's a very competitive division. And I mentioned that it won't negatively affect other divisions too much. Like when they opened the flyweight division, it was drawing from both strawweight and bantamweight, and it sucked some good fighters out of there. The atomweight division, if it draws fighters from other divisions, it's going to be strawweight only, and it's only going to be a few of them because a lot of them aren't going to be that small, or they might be at a place in the division where they don't want to go down to a new one. So those are the pros for the atomweight division. Now, I was talking about this in the WMMA Q&A the other day with Drake Riggs, and he listed some good cons, and I had to say they brought up some good arguments. One of them is being that atom weight is largely centered around Asia. Like a lot of the best atom weights are in Asia, which means you're going to get a lot of fighters whose primary language isn't English and might not speak English at all. And for a promotion that likes to focus a lot on English-speaking fighters, or, mostly has an English-speaking audience, it can make it a little harder to sell. So that's definitely a big one. Like I said earlier, they're spread out. So you have to go far and wide to get a good number of fighters. Like when the UFC opened strawweight, they basically plucked half of the Invictus strawweight division in order to create the Ultimate Fighter cast. It's not going to be that easy. I mean, yes, Invicta does have some good atom weights there, but you're not just be able to take a bunch of them and boom, there's your division. You're going to have to, search high and low, far and wide. Okay, maybe that's not the best word. You're going to have to go to a number of promotions to get these atom weights because they are spread out. And then, honestly, and this to me is the biggest con for the UFC to open this division, you might not get the best fighters. And let's be honest here. If you don't have the best fighters, you're not going to have the best division. I mean, here's the top three in the division right now, in my opinion, hands down. Sahi Ham, Ayaka Hamasaki, and Kana Asakura. If you can't get at least two of these three, it's going to be a hard sell saying we have the best atom weights in the world. And that's what the UFC is automatically going to try to do. But if you can't get at least those two, it's going to be hard to sell them. So, yeah, that's going to be a big con. Now, of course, the UFC, they're going to just go straight ahead and go full-on narrative. We have the best, and completely ignoring, everything else around the world, which they do, and largely they control the narrative. Got to be honest. They largely control the narrative, especially with the fans that matter the most, which is the casual fans. But I think you still have a sizable, audience of hardcores on the internet that are going to let everyone know that they are missing out on some good fighters. So if you don't have at least, like I said, 2 of those top 3 fighters, it's going to be a hard sell with that. So that is a big con. And those are honestly, like I said, Sahi Ham, Ayaka Hamasaki, and Kana Sakura. Those are like the 3 best in the division right now. You got to have them. And they're all, 2 of them are in Ryzen. Ham left Ryzen, supposed to be signing with 1, although they have yet to make that official. It's been several months now. So we'll see what's going on there. But you got to have those 3. So that's the bulk of the presentation for this. Let's talk about some other fighters on here as well that I think, I would say like some of the next top 3. 2 of them are Invicta, one's over in Road FC. So you got Alicia Zappate, the Invicta atomweight champ. You'd want to have the Invicta champ. I mean, there aren't too many Invicta champs that the UFC doesn't eventually end up signing. I mean, there have been some, but there aren't too many. And you'd think that if they opened a new division, Invicta would be the first place they'd go to sign for, a current champion and say, yeah, we've got, the Invicta champ as well. So they definitely want to go for Alicia Zappate. And then Lindsey Vanzant, I think she'd be an easy fan favorite. She's got like a bubbly personality, got an accent. A lot of fans like accents, and she's got one. Got that New York accent, and plus she has an exciting style. She's got a nice striking style and some jiu-jitsu as well. Then you got Jun Park. Got to have some Asian fighters, of course. Right now she's the best atomweight signed to Road FC, which is, one of the few promotions that has an established atomweight division, and she's the best one there right now. Now that Sahi Ham's no longer with Road FC either, so she's definitely the best one there. Normally in the top 3, I would have included, or in the next top 3, I would have included the Deep Jewels champion, but the Deep Jewels title is currently vacant. The champ Tomomi Isawa retired in October, vacating the belt, so they're going to have a tournament starting in March to crown a new atomweight champion. So those would be like the next best 3 to sign, and I think they'd all make great signings for the UFC. All of them have tick off a lot of boxes, finishes, the X Factor. They're all very charismatic. All 3 of these are very charismatic fighters. Here's 3 more that would I think the UFC should sign. Ashley Cummins, one of the better fighters in Invicta right now at atomweight. Picks off some X factors, good boxing, decent ground game. Ticks off the X factor, policemen. I mean, police are going through like some negatives right now, but still that X factor. You could sell that. Shiyu Park is Sahi Ham's, main training partner. Currently fighting in Deep Jewel. She's just won her bout in like a couple weeks ago. She's going to be fighting in that tournament in March. I think she's lacks an experience right now, but I think she'd be a good signing as well. And her style is very fan friendly, primarily kickboxer, striker friendly as well. And then Amp the Rocket, Suinam Boonsoin. She is the current Deep Jewels microweight champion at 97 pounds, but she's very competitive at atomweight, super atomweight as well. So very strong fighter, fast finisher too. Like I think all of her wins are by finish, so she'd be a good one to sign as well. Now you're probably wondering, why haven't I listed or mentioned any of One Championship's atomweights so far? Well, that's just it. They're One Championship atomweights. They're not, legit they're fighting at 115 pounds. And honestly, some of these fighters have never actually fought in a legit atomweight division. Angela Lee might have, at the start of her career, but I mean, before her last fight, she said she started her weight cut at like 135. Man, that's huge. That's big for 115, let alone trying to make atomweight. So I don't see Angela Lee as a legit atomweight. Now, May Yamaguchi in the middle there, she used to fight at atomweight back in the day. Her and Sahi battled it out, I believe, in that weight class. So she could, but she's also getting up there in age. I think she might be winding down her career at this point. And you got Denise Zamboanga. She's fought all of her fights and won championship, I think, other than like maybe her first, I think, was in URCC. So she's been fighting at 115. I don't know if she can make atomweight. I don't. Itsuki Arata, you know what? She'd be a fun signing. She's kind of one-dimensional right now. She's very much a specialist fighter, but she has a charisma to her, and she's a finisher. She's always looking for the finish. I think she'd be very exciting if they could get her away from one championship. I think she can make 105 too, but I don't know. Stamp won at one championship. She's just like Angela Lee. They're never going to let her go. There's just no way. No way they'd ever let her go. And I don't know if she could make 105. But yeah, she's also honestly very untested as well. I mean, we've never seen a fighter who can legit take her down. We've never seen her against a fighter who could legit take her down and present her with some trouble on the ground. So we don't know how she'd do there. And then I included Ritu Phogat just because, she's one of those fighters getting a big push by one. She's 4-0, 5-0 with them now, but largely untested. I mean, she's been put in there against very favorable matchups. And again, don't know if she could make legit atomweight. She's fighting at 115. I'm not sure what weight class she wrestled at. That's primarily what she is. She's pretty one-dimensional right now, just a wrestler. Talking about some of these fighters that might not be able to make 105 atomweight division, you gotta wonder. It makes me think. The more I think about it, I think UFC doing super atomweight instead, like Ryzen did with like 108, or Shudo did 110, I think would be a better idea just because of, the weight cuts and everything. The smaller you go in weight, the lower you go in weight, the more of a percentage that you're talking about as far as like body weight percentage that you're cutting down with everything. So I've thought about this a lot lately, and I think, and others have too, and, super atomweight might be a better idea for, the UFC to do, because it might be easier for some of those like smaller straw weights to get down there, and maybe they can even go back and forth between the divisions rather than having to cut that legit 10-pound. Although I really doubt the UFC will do it because they like that 10-pound difference. They like the way the weight classes are set up right now. So I think super atomweight would be a better idea, like 108, but I think the UFC would, if they were to implement it, would just go straight to 105. Speaking of some straw weights that could cut down, I think these are the top three. Two of them have fought at atomweight before. Loma Lookboonmee, I mean, she is very small. She was small, fairly small for an atomweight. And now she's fighting at strawweight. She's 2-1 now in the division. And yeah, I think she'd have a good home there. So yeah, I think she'd definitely would have a home in a UFC atomweight division. I think they'd push her straight to the top right away. Jinyu Fry, she missed weight her last time, lost the Invicta title on the scale. But I think if the UFC said, hey, we're opening atomweight division, I think she'd be very tempted to get her diet right and move back down. I know she's been trying to bulk up for strawweight, but I think if the money was right and the UFC opened up a chance to challenge for an atomweight title again, I think she'd go down. And Carla Esparza, she's never fought at atomweight, but the graphic that I use a lot, the picture, the thumbnail with the UFC belt on a scale, that says 105, that was hers. She put that out on Instagram like 3 years ago in 2018. And I think she could legit make atomweight. She's always been kind of small for strawweight. And honestly, as strawweights have gotten bigger, she stayed the same size. So I think with her current ranking, she's like, what, number 4 right now at strawweight? I think they'd have to put some money in the pot for her to go down, or like possibly say, hey, we'll give you the first title shot if we open the division. I think they'd have to do something to really tempt her to go down, but I think she'd be interested in going down. I mean, like I said, if the incentives were there, I think that Carla Esparza could possibly go down to atomweight. So, which leads to a question, well, how would you go about introducing the atomweight division? And a lot of people's first thought is the Ultimate Fighter. And there are some pros to it. They've done it 2 different times to introduce new divisions and new divisional champions. They did it with women's strawweight on Tough 20, and they did it with the women's flyweights on, I want to say, Tough 25. And there are some pros to it. You get to know the fighters. You recruit all the fighters at once, and you introduce them to the world through 6 weeks of reality TV, so everybody gets to know the fighters a little bit better. You get to see their styles. So there are some pros to it. You could crown a champion at the end right away. I mean, there's definitely some pros to it, but I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of introducing the division through Tough. At least not anymore. I used to be, but not anymore. Look, to me, I think there's just the cons outweigh some of the pros. For example, one of the biggest things is you go back to English. You're not going to get a bunch of foreign language fighters. They're going to want everyone to mostly speak English on the show. And you're not going to get some of the better fighters who are coming from outside the U.S. who can't speak English. I mean, the UFC is not going to want to pay interpreters and pay to have subtitles all the time for a bunch of different language-speaking fighters, whether Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Filipino, whatever language fighters they bring in. They're not going to want to bring in interpreters for all of that. I mean, they didn't even bring in an interpreter for Hiromasa Ogakubo on the flyweight season. I mean, they basically had to just do broken English and sign language with him on the show, and that was just one fighter. How are you going to have a bunch of fighters doing it? Then you have, what else? You're not going to necessarily get the best fighters, because a lot of the best fighters aren't going to want to be on a reality show. They're not going to want to spend 6 weeks doing that and competing. It's been proven time and again. A lot of them are going to see that as that's a waste of time. It's just not worth it. And then also, some of the bigger fighters, a lot of fighters aren't just going to want to cut weight multiple times in a short period. The Ultimate Fighter mostly benefits smaller fighters in a weight class who can keep their weight down and make the weight class easily in a short amount of time. But you're not going to get that. A lot of the fighters that might want to cut weight or need to cut weight down to the weight class a lot, because they're just going to have a harder time doing it, 3-4 times in a short amount of time. So I'm not just that big a fan of the Ultimate Fighter. And I think, like I said, I think those cons outweigh the pros. Another idea that some people have said was to do it through the Contender Series. And there's some pros to that. The show seems to be pretty popular. They do basically do like an introduction for each fighter, so you get to know each fighter. But I think the cons outweigh the pros here as well. I mean, first of all, you only sign the winners, whereas like with Tough, you can bring in winners and losers on the season. With Contender Series, you're only getting, the winners, and you're not getting every winner as well. You're only getting the winners that impress Dana White because, it's his vanity project, and he decides who gets to go and who stays and who leaves. And so you're not necessarily going to get every winner. Then you have to figure out, how are you going to introduce them? Are you going to do like one episode? Are you going to do several episodes, like focused on just one weight class? I don't see that going down, which means you would have to spread them out over like a bunch of different episodes. And there's only like 5, maybe 6 fights on each card. And you would have to take, like, let's say you spread it out across 6 episodes, 1 fight on each episode. That's 6 fights, 6 winners that don't all necessarily get signed. That's not a real way to introduce the division. I mean, so when it comes down to it, I think that, the best way to do it would just be to introduce them gradually, like one or 2 fights at a time, spread across multiple events. Just introduce the division slowly and build it as you go. The UFC seems to want to introduce a title right away. And I don't think you need to introduce a title. Build the division up and then introduce a title. Do it slowly. I mean, there's no rush to introduce the division. So do it properly. Get the crowd to know the fighters, watch them fight. And then once you get some contenders going or some winners in there, then introduce the championship. Then you can decide on the title. So that's, I think, would be the way to do it. So yeah, so that's really what I think the UFC should do if they're going to introduce the atomweight division, which I still, in light of some of the cons that, some of the, I just heard, over the past week, I still think it would be a good idea. I'd still love to see it, particularly if they can get those, the big 3, which I don't think is going to be feasible. But if they can get at least 2, definitely at least 1, then I think that would be the way to do it. Would just be, introduce them slowly, one at a time, like a fight at a time, I think would be the right way to go about doing it. So that's really my presentation. So let's go ahead and take a look at some comments here. Mostly I think they're all from the brother man. So Fry is getting bigger and needs to go to flyweight and bantamweight. I don't see it. She didn't look that big. I mean, she didn't look big compared to any of her opponents. She fought Kay Hansen, didn't look bigger than Kay Hansen. She really didn't look any bigger than Loma Lookboonmee either. I mean, she's yoked. She's ripped. But I don't see her getting bigger necessarily. I think she's trying to bulk up for strawweight, but she's still small for a strawweight. UFC needs to push for an open weight title since bantamweight has no stars like Nunes and Holm. Disagree. Yeah, I mean, I think they should get rid of featherweight and focus on bantamweight, building up the bantamweight back. But I don't see the point in an open weight title. Isn't Road going through financial troubles? That is the word. I mean, they haven't had an event in 2020. They didn't have an event all year because of no live audience. They did like several small shows with their ARC through Africa TV, the Africa Road Championship. And those were some fun shows, different format, like different rules and everything, but it was fun. They definitely lost out on a lot of money once they lost Xiaomi, the Chinese mobile Giant as their title sponsor, which Xiaomi, I think, is now One Championship's title sponsor. But so, yeah, it does seem like Road is going through some money issues. Believe that will be a good tournament. I can't remember what I was going through at the time when you commented that. Let's see. Atomweight division needs strong Americans. Yeah, I mean, definitely if you want to have a division succeed in the UFC, you need strong American fighters, which, you got Alicia Zappate, Lindsey Vanzant, Ashley Cummins. I mean, there's some strong Americans. I mean, there's definitely some strong Americans. And, once you introduce the atomweight division to the UFC, more atomweights are going to pop out of the woodwork. I think the growth potential for the atomweight division definitely outweighs the growth potential of the featherweight division. Because let's be honest here, even on the regional scene and everything, you haven't seen much growth in the featherweight division, even though the UFC introduced it. So, but I think if the atomweights have definitely grown as a division over the years, a lot more than featherweight has. And atomweights, honestly, atomweight as a division has been around for years and years. So there's definitely still some growth potential there as well. The Deep Jewels Atomweight tournament. It'll be interesting to see who they bring in for it. I mean, Chiyu Park is obviously, already in it. She's staying in Japan. Like, she went from Korea to Japan, went through 2 weeks of quarantine just to be able to fight. So she's in it. I imagine someone like Hikaru Ano will be back in it. There should be like a good number of atomweights in it. Should be make for an interesting tournament. I think it'll be fun. Can't wait to see who they bring in for it myself either. So I think they're doing it across 2 different events. So I don't know. I thought I saw a post where, Deep President Shigeru Seiki said 8 people, but I think it's more likely to be like 1 person or 4 people than 8 people, because then you can do that across. You can do the semifinals and then the finals in 2 events. Consensus for the future of WMMA. I like where it's at right now, and I think it's only going to get better. I see a lot. Well, not a lot. I've definitely seen some commentary by people that say, the UFC should up the number of women's fights, or they should do more women's main events or co-main events. Here's my stance. It's still a male-dominated sport. It's always going to be a male-dominated sport. You're always going to have more male fighters than women, and right now you definitely have way more men's divisions than you have female divisions. I mean, you have men. You have flyweight, bantam, feather, lightweight. Flyweight, bantam, feather, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. So you have 8 men's divisions. You have 4 women's divisions in the UFC right now. And the men's divisions are all way deeper than any of the women's divisions. So you're just going to have more men's fights no matter what. Do I think they should try to have more women's main events and co-main events? Sure, especially if you're going to say that a fighter, if you're going to label like a fight as a number 1 contender fight or a possible number 1 contender fight, then it should be at least a co-main event on a fight night event, or a main event on a fight night event. I think you should have more women's co-main events for title fights on pay-per-views. Definitely pay-per-view, like main event pay-per-views. They'd have to. I don't know. I mean, I think the UFC knows their numbers and what they can get away with selling and making money on, and what they can't. I mean, can the UFC definitely, push and promote the women's divisions better? Oh, definitely. But I think they also know that the most of their money is still with the men's divisions, and that's what they're going to push. So I think that having 2 to 3 women's fights per event and one per main card, I mean, I think that's a good direction in the current mode right now, especially considering how many events they're putting on. They're putting on more events than ever, which means they're putting on more fights than ever. So if you have like 2 or 3 fights on every card, that's 2 to 3 fights a week almost that you're having women's fights in the UFC. Plus you have women's fights in Bellator. Bellator could definitely put on more women's fights and grow their divisions as well. So I think more pressure should be put on Bellator personally than the UFC, because UFC has led the way as far as the women's divisions go. Have you seen Fight Circus Volume 2 a month ago? Yeah, I did. I think the only ladies thing they had was the leg wrestling thing, which was just, that was pure Fight Circus. I did have a lot of fun. I liked watching that, though. That was fun. So you hear Khabib is very interested in creating a female division in his own. So he bought out Gorilla Fighting Championship, renamed it to Eagle, and they actually have a strawweight champion, Anna Rudenko. Honestly, though, Khabib does not seem to be in favor of the women fighters based on past comments. If I were, ladies fighters, if I were Anna Rudenko, I would definitely be nervous about my future in that promotion, just based on what Khabib has said. Now, will Khabib make business decisions based on his personal views? I don't know. I would hope not, but Khabib seems to be a guy who, has a lot of deep personal convictions, so it's hard to say. I mean, I'm not very optimistic that he'll have women's fights in Eagle FC, so that's really all I can say. Also, will Nunes retire this year, or will Nunes have 1-2 years left in her fight game? Good question. I think as long as she still enjoys fighting and likes making money, then yeah, she'll still keep fighting. It just depends. I mean, I think she still enjoys fighting, so I think she'll give it another year or 2. I mean, she's talked about retirement, but I think she enjoys it too much. Larby, who did Fight Circus 2? Who's Larby? I'm not familiar. Was there more than one ladies fight on Fight Circus? Let me go ahead and bring up Topology. Or no. Let me see if I can bring up Fight Circus card here real quick on Topology. On the good old iPad. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, Larby did the leg wrestling thing. The smaller girl. I don't know. I don't know who that is, so I don't know. Larby who did the leg wrestling thing. So yeah, I honestly don't know. I'd have to look into her. She might be a fighter, but yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I don't know about anything about her, honestly. So we went just about 40 minutes. So that's really just wanted to talk about bigger and black one. No, I think she's just a fitness lady. I mean, I'll look her up. I mean, she doesn't have an MMA record on Tapology. I'd have to look up her full name. But I don't know. I think she's mostly just a fitness model or like a fitness pageant contestant, which the other girl that was originally supposed to fight her was as well. So I think that was the whole point of that thing, was like, you bring in these women with these built bodies and these big, thick thighs, and that's the whole point of the Indian leg wrestling thing. The smaller girl was like a late replacement. So anyway, I'm going to get going. Just wanted to talk about, Dana White's interview with the Schmo, and seems like he's being more serious about considering women's atomweight, which I think, the better the ladies put on fights in, the atomweight division, the more eye-catching it'll be. I think the more that people talk about it online, I think that helps as well. And, that the more the fighters campaign for it helps. But, I think one of the biggest aspects, or, one of the biggest fighters for the women's atomweight division, and the biggest advocates, I should say, has got to be hands down Laura Sanko. I mean, every time she talks to the matchmaker, she kind of hints at it and teases them about it and talks to Dana about it. So she's definitely the biggest advocate within the UFC organization that has been fighting for atomweight. So she's definitely fighting for it, and I think that'll help as well in the future. But we got to definitely, online, everybody, all the ladies fight fans have got to, keep up the campaign for hashtag UFC atomweight and keep it going. That's really all I have for tonight. I am working on a video for tomorrow. So one thing I'm working on, doing a feature on the microweight division. Deep Jules has a microweight champion. Deep, the parent company, has a microweight champion. I've talked about it before, but I want to do like a more in-depth feature on it. I don't think I'll do a stream on it. I'll probably just do like a recorded video on it. But although I do like doing the StreamYard thing, it seems pretty easy. It's like idiot proof, so might be tempted to do a stream on it. Let's see, a couple comments before I go. Habib has respect with other female fighters, so she needs to push for the org. I think he has respect for them as fighters. I just think it just seems like his personal convictions are against that. He doesn't like women fighting. I mean, he's very, very traditional. He's just very traditional and old school, very in his ways with that traditional mindset thing going. Partially religious, but I won't get into that too much. But definitely like a Russian and Caucasus aspect that, women are to be wives and stay at home and cook and everything. I just don't see Habib. I mean, I don't know. It depends. Can he separate business from personal convictions? That is the question to answer. Also, will we try to get WMMA Addict involved and patch things up with both of you together? You know what? I've never say never. He likes doing his own thing. I like doing my own thing. I don't really pay attention to what he does anymore. I wish him well. Like I said, I have nothing against him personally. It's just, I just thought that the way the direction he was taking his channel in, from, really seriously fight focused to talking more about social media. I mean, that's his channel. He can do what he wants. Also, he went from focusing on a lot of WMA to mostly just UFC. But then again, like I said, that's his channel. If it's getting him views, good for him. Never say never, but I like doing my own thing. He likes doing his own thing. So I mean, nothing. Like I said, it's nothing personal. I just have strong beliefs, and so does he. And you know, I only ever talked about him the one time, the one video. Although a lot of people thought that he was taking, you know, like pot shots at me in his community posts, which he never mentioned me, but a lot of his commenters thought he was talking about me. One more thing. Do you think Manon Fiorot is the future of female France WMMA? And how much of a force will she be in the UFC? So she just signed with the UFC. She's going to face Victoria Leonardo, I think. So I think she's definitely the strongest female fighter to come out of France right now. Fear. I mean, looking at her record, she's 5-1. Just came off a title fight win. About to fight on this month on the 20th. Her versus Leonardo should be a darn good fight. But yeah, I think she'll definitely be leading the way for the women, the French women MMA fighters. Very much looking forward to her. You know, I wish I'd have talked about her more. I think I did do one review on one of her fights, but definitely be talking about her more now that she's in the UFC and not just with UAE Warriors, because I wasn't always able to catch their fights. So definitely going to be looking forward to seeing more of what she does. All right, so definitely went longer than I thought it would go, but that's really all I have for tonight. I got to get going to bed. I got to work in the morning. That's life, you know. Gotta go to work. Gotta make that cheddar. So we'll be signing off. If you're catching a replay, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like it, please give it a like. And while you're at it, go ahead subscribe to WMMA Now, the most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.